So there's these thoughts, but then there's this filter, which is your own consciousness, which is your own experience. And that is an important piece between that whole thought going down to the emotional solar plexus thing, is it's got to go through the filter of your own experience and your own understanding.
Right.
Luckily, that's something that can be worked with. Human Design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, Human Design Specialist.
And I'm Haley, the Human Design Newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hey there, Haley. How you doing?
Hello. I'm back again.
Again. I think it's, they always say, oops, I hit my microphone. They always say that you should start your year off, especially your New Year day, which this is New Year's Day. We're letting the cat out of the bag. We're actually recording this episode a day before we put it out there. Life's busy. But they say you should spend your New Year's Day the way you want your year to go, or something like that, or at least with the intention of that.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. So we're glad you're here. Because hopefully that means you have the intention of sticking around.
I have always had the intention of sticking
I
around.
know.
I have just had a very period of life currently.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us to where you are now, which surprised me when you came on camera, which if, I've started publishing little snippets and stuff on YouTube, and then also little sound bites and little pieces of the podcast online to help promote. So people kind of get used to what we look like too, and where we are. And when you popped up today in a totally new environment, it threw me for a loop because you have moved.
We have moved out of our apartment, and we are currently living with Presley's mom and dad, and it's complicated, but I'm at my in-laws' house. And we are here for a loosely indeterminate amount of time because we are moving to Colorado. Letting the cat out of the bag on the podcast.
I may have mentioned it.
Oh,
if you listen to the podcast,
it helps if I listen. So people already knew, but we want to go out end of February. But we're working on the timing of trying to find a house to rent, and it's it seems like we've reached out to a couple management companies, and they say it's like a month before, that's how long they have to. So their current tenants have 30 days to let them know before their lease is up. So it's like we're in this
waiting game.
Yeah.
So if anybody listening in the Colorado Springs area, or the greater Colorado Springs, Denver area, please reach out.
Help.
Let us know if you have a house to rent.
Help.
We'd prefer 2 bedrooms, a nice yard for the dog.
Anyone out there, hit me up.
Yeah, because we got to have an office, which I said, Haley, it's funny. She looks like she's a gamer right now, the setup, because her monitor's really high because she's using her husband's monitor setup, which he doesn't really video himself that much. So his monitor, his camera's high. There's trophies in the background. It's the gamer that lives in his mom's basement. Something that's all like that, but the light's good.
It is. It's a big window, so that's nice.
Yeah. So it is the new year.
Yes, and New Year's Day is your wedding anniversary.
It is my wedding anniversary. It's kind of gotten over the years, we kind of forget about it. Because this year marks 29 years of marriage.
Wow.
29 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And
my guess was going to be 27 because I couldn't remember how many
we did
years
have a little
for.
bit of a life before you were born, Haley.
I know you did. I just didn't know how many years it was.
It was 3 before you were born. 29 years. And I had another thought about that and I forgot. But that's what happens after 29 years of marriage.
Well, but
Originally, yeah, we did get married on New Year's Day. I wanted to get married on New Year's Eve because I was a child when I got married. I was 23 when we got married, younger than you. It's
mhm.
insane. When I think about it now, it's insane because Ian is 23. Like,
Ew.
no, no, ew. It feels crazy. But I worked at the time when we got married or when we were getting married, I worked in hospitality. I was a waitress and I, for some reason, picked New Year's Eve because I thought it was an exciting time to get married and everything. And then realized it was very difficult to get off work on New Year's Eve, especially where I was working. I was like the only waitress. So I was like, well, I can't do that. So I got married on New Year's Day. And I thought also getting married around that time, it would be easier for your dad to remember what day we got married because memory's not the best. And he does remember the day, but never knows how long we've been married because getting married in 1994, it's very hard to do the math sometimes.
It doesn't give you an even number because then it's like, yeah. I mean,
I think I
I'm with
just
him on that.
slurped. I think I just slurped coffee on mic. I didn't mean to do that.
I didn't hear it.
So around the theme of New Year's, kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about today on
Okay.
today's episode, which is about New Year's and what we want to create or what we want to bring in, or some might say manifest in the
Mm-hmm.
new year or at any time in life. And
Okay. Okay.
the last episode that I recorded was about the gates that the sun moves through this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, let's see, we went through before Christmas from until like the 23rd. It was gate 10, gate self love. And then it moved into gate of joy, gate 58.
No.
hmm And then just last night or today, actually, today, yeah, it moves into gate 38, which is the fighter. And so some of the things that we talked, or opposition is called, we talked about, or I talked about, me, myself, and I, was about how this is a time of year that, of course, everybody's making resolutions and they all want to start over and they just want to like throw out the everything that happened and just start
New
fresh and
year,
start
new
over.
me.
Right. And that usually lasts for maybe 21, 30 days at the end of
Maybe.
January. It's like we were watching the Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper last
Mm-hmm.
night, CNN for the last like 40 minutes of the year, Lakeland and I. And everybody's wearing these big paper top hats from Planet
Mm-hmm.
Fitness. And she's like, Planet Fitness, why are they wearing Planet Fitness? Oh, and then she kind of like dawned on her, oh, because of New Year's resolutions. I said, yeah, it's the busiest time of the year for gyms is all those signups
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has the intention they want to do things differently. And so what the last episode was about, okay, if you want to change things, these are just some energies you can work with. This is contemplating this gate of self-love was all about the level of love that you have for yourself and how you feel. And the gate 58 was
Mm-hmm.
the one that was about what is it you want to create? What do you love so much that you're willing to keep refining it? Because it's the gate of mastery. It's like the joy of mastery, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And because it starts that process of the talent, of having a talent or something you want to bring forth. And then this energy we're working with right now is what's worth fighting for? What is
Mm-hmm.
something that is important to you, or your belief systems, or something that you want to bring forth that's important? What is truly important? That's the gate that the energy's with right now. So anyways, point being, kind of started this conversation around the creation process, and
Mm-hmm.
I am gonna throw the word manifestation or manifesting into the title of this episode because that's what people are drawn to. It's what they're interested in. And I think it's really, really cool and interesting that people are starting to think this way and that they have some sort of control over their destiny or their
Mm-hmm.
experience, which they do. They absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on the whole manifesting thing?
Well, I strongly dislike the buzzwordiness of
Mm-hmm.
like of just strictly manifesting and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like a lot of times people hear that word and they're like, oh, manifesting, like, ooh, woo woo.
Like
But like,
magic, like.
yeah, it's like, oh well, you're just gonna make things out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like what it actually means, and like getting your energy focused on things.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's really what it is. And we delved into it a little bit with the episode about the universal laws because the
Mm-hmm.
law of attraction is one of them. And we've also talked about it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more here about the G center,
Mm-hmm.
which is where the monopole lives, which is
Yep.
about energy, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But there is, I'll be honest, I have taken the manifesting courses. I years ago I've signed up for trainings and courses because I mean I've always been interested in using the power of your mind, which is what we associate manifesting with. It's shifting a little bit now, and this is where I hope to shift the conversation even further. But it's been about the power of your thoughts, your intention, and if you can think it into existence,
Mm-hmm.
and I think because we have sort of still been in that mental awareness place, we're moving into the emotional awareness being our primary awareness center,
Mm-hmm.
but still being up in that mental space made sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because also we're so used to making things happen. Most people think they make things happen by thinking about them. And what have we started to learn through human design?
Your brain is kind of stupid sometimes.
Says the projector. Your brain is kind of stupid sometimes.
This is the defined head in Ashna.
Fully defined, yes. Well, we'll put it in nicer terms. Maybe it's like the mind's not for making things happen, it's for questioning.
Mhm.
And so that's what I wanted to talk about today is kind of a process that I have been exposed to, introduced to really through my training with quantum human design. And it's it makes so much more sense to me because even though I do not have a defined head, it's wide open.
Mhm.
I do have a defined ajna, and the definition there is in that knowing channel. However, I do also have gate 4. There's a lot of logic there is always trying to
Mhm.
answer questions. I'm always trying to answer questions. And so I always try to back up my knowingness or what I'm feeling with logic. So
Mhm.
sometimes things like this feel good to me because it kind of maps it out and it seems like a process, but it's not a linear process. It
Mhm.
is like just what's happening. Whether you're thinking about it or not, this is what's
Mhm.
happening, but you can influence it. It's what we've also been talking about a lot is
Yep.
influencing energy, right?
Influencing timing, right?
Yep. Yep. And the energy and what you want to do. So, like I said, we've talked about what everybody hears and says is that your thoughts create your reality.
Mhm.
And there is some truth to that for sure. But it's your thoughts actually create or calibrate emotions, which then affect or calibrate the G center, which
Mhm.
then determines what the monopole attracts because the monopole only
Attracts. I
waiting
was
for
like,
your
oh god, I'm
cue.
on the spot.
I like doing that. Yeah. So, you can have, and this is where people get hung up. You can have lots of great thoughts, but not the results you want. Because if just our thoughts did it, well, you'd be in Colorado right now.
Yeah.
And I'd be right there with you because I just thought of it. And here we are.
Ta-da!
No,
Yeah, it'd
but
be much easier.
yeah, it'd be easier, but it wouldn't be as much fun. It's like
Hmm.
if you instantly manifested everything you thought, it would be quite chaotic
God,
for everyone. And that gets really
it'd
deep
just
into
be
that whole quantum
chaos.
conversation. Yeah. Yeah. That gets into the whole timelines and everything else conversation, like the movie Everything Everywhere All at
Interstellar.
Once.
Oh,
Oh no. Interstellar still messes with my head.
oh yeah, it's great soundtrack. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great soundtrack for getting work done. That used to be my
Mm-hmm.
go-to in high school.
Mm-hmm. So back to the thoughts. Okay. And just thoughts and affirmations that don't always work. A lot of people, and I've seen it, it's happened to myself. You're giving these mantras or these affirmations to repeat to yourself and say after a couple days, you're like, nothing's working. Or I do like subliminal recording sometimes because it's kind of bypassing your logical mind. It's going straight to the subconscious, so you can't really disagree with it. The thoughts are getting in there, and those work good
Mhm,
too. But as far as consciously trying to create something, this is where a lot of people get hung up because it's just, and it makes you feel bad when especially if you see everybody else having these results and everything's great, which don't believe everything you see online. For one, remember that some
mhm,
of these people, not all of them, are creating businesses around
mhm,
manifesting and the process. And just like anything else, and I think we're going to have this conversation a lot more in the coming years about discernment, what you see, not always the truth.
mhm,
But anyways,
mhm,
point was what we started with. We don't create with the mind. We create with
mhm,
how we feel with intention, right?
mhm.
Because
Yep.
when we talked about centers, we had not the old way, but we have because the solar plexus is our center of creativity. But the
Mhm,
solar plexus center in the Human Design Bodygraph, before the split in 1781 in the energy centers, it was the solar plexus and the spleen center were collectively the solar plexus center. So they split.
Oh, I didn't know they split too.
Yeah, that was the split.
I thought the split was the G center in the heart.
Well, yes, there was that, but we went from 7 to 9. So,
So they both split at the same
yeah,
time. Two
yeah,
splits.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So, that being said, if our solar plexus is what we're working towards, is our emotional, creative energy, that means that there's that energy also in the spleen, right? Which
Mhm,
gate 58 goes from the root up to the spleen. Gate 38 is part of this too. It's this creative energy. But that energy, the spleen, is that instinctual awareness, which
mhm,
means you are reacting and creating out of fear,
mhm,
generally,
mhm,
afraid of what might happen. Makes
mhm.
sense.
Yep.
Whereas the solar plexus is more about intention and being deliberate with our creating and choosing how we want to create and what we want to create. And
I
that's
feel like it's a lot more about like the opportunity of things around you.
the opportunity of things. Would you like
Mhm.
to elaborate on that?
Well, because like the spleen, it's out of fear, it's reactive, it's like scared, just trying to survive. But then
Mm-hmm.
anytime like when we went through the solar plexus and the different gates, they were all about creating and making things. So I just to me that's like more like opportunity and like kind of seeing the world differently and like a
Mm-hmm.
more positive versus like light versus dark between like the solar plexus and the
Yeah.
spleen.
Yeah, because it is about how there's more choice in the emotional solar plexus about how you feel, about how you want to
Hmm.
feel, right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, so it's really, and let's be clear, the emotional solar plexus and the emotions are not just always feelings. This isn't the
Mm-hmm.
center of love. That's more in the G center because that's where the heart is. But what's interesting here is creating, like you said, not so much from fear and reaction, but more with anticipation and
Mm-hmm.
excitement, deciding what feels good and
Mm-hmm.
then wanting more of that,
Right.
right? And then also, because there's the gate 55 in the solar plexus, gate of faith
Mm-hmm.
and or abundance. It's called different things, but I refer to it as faith. And it's that assuredness, that faith that if you hold this vibration as much as you can, it's assured it will come because you are a
Mm-hmm.
creative individual. We are
Mm-hmm.
dancing in the quantum all the time, right? Because what we just talked about before, all these thoughts firing off, right? Every time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, quantum possibility is all about, well, creating possibility with how we interact in the quantum field,
Mm-hmm.
which I asked Ian yesterday, because I saw something about a race in technology for quantum computing, quantum computers. And I was like, what does that mean?
What is that?
And he says, well, it's no longer a binary system. It wouldn't rely on a binary system. And I was like, okay, well, I understand that's the ones and zeros. But what does that mean?
what,
And
what mean?
he tried to explain it to me, the 3 5. And I was just like, so like the computer will make things? He's like, no. He couldn't. I can't even understand the concept of what a quantum computer is. And if anybody knows, you can let me know.
I mean, I know same as you that it's binary zero and ones, but
I don't even know how
I
that
don't
works.
know how they make it work.
I don't either.
I
You
don't know
just
how they
know.
build code to make things. I'm like,
Mm-mm.
that's above my head.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of these things. One of the things is interesting is that a lot of the laws of the universe, or whatever you want to call it, when we're talking about energy and all this stuff, is we don't have to think about them all the time. We don't even have to fully understand them. We just got to accept that they
Use it.
work. Yeah. Because, like, I was listening to Abraham Hicks the other this morning, and it says, we don't sit there and try to analyze how gravity's working all the time. We just understand it influences our life every day,
And we
and
accept it.
we accept it, and we just allow it to be. And this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of these things we're going to be talking about here is the same thing. It's just work with it, just try it. And so I'm going to kind of outline the little process here. So creating with intention. This was kind of mind blowing to me when I first saw it, like on the body graph explained like this. Okay.
Okay.
And so when we talk about the mind, the head center, which is
Mm-hmm.
where all the questions occur, thought occurs. If you're defined, it's like constant, like you always have access to these questions are always firing off. If it's undefined, depending on who you're around or what you're listening to or whatever, thoughts may occur, what you're reading, whatever. So when these thoughts occurs, if we're going to look at it from a mechanical perspective here, this is almost like a mechanics of how
Okay.
manifesting works, is when the brain, the actual physical brain, thoughts occurs, neurotransmitters light up. We can see the
Mm-hmm.
electrical activity in the brain, right?
Right.
And these neurotransmitters get to work. They start to
Mm-hmm.
fire because a thought has occurred. Then these neurotransmitters, their job is transmitting. These neurotransmitters then can cause you to have an emotional response to the thought.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you think about on the body graph, you've got the head center
Mm-hmm.
going down to the emotional solar plexus through those channels. And these emotions that occur carry a frequency of energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all know
Mm-hmm.
what that feels like, good, bad, different, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Carries this frequency of energy. And that quality of that frequency of energy is the So the vibrations that are created there, that frequency is determined by the emotional response, like we just talked about. And then that energy frequency calibrates
Mm-hmm.
the G center, goes to the
Right.
heart,
Mm-hmm.
the monopole. So if you think about coming from the head, solar plexus going up through the will center, because that's still part of the heart center, to the G center. So
Mm-hmm.
it's this, right, to calibrate the G center.
Mm-hmm.
So this then influences what you attract and create because it's your
Right.
monopole. All right.
Monopole.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
So that's the basis of the framework there.
Mm-hmm.
Watch you go,
Yeah.
uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that being said, let's kind of break this down just a little bit further because
Okay.
that's the main framework. Okay, so thoughts, as we said, our thoughts are created by the questions that we have. Our thoughts are stimulated by the questions we have. And I think what's important here to point out is we don't always realize the questions we have, right?
Hmm. I guess.
Well, you don't. Sometimes you could have a posing a general question. Well, I wonder what would happen if I tried this, or I wonder if it's possible for me to find a partner who values me, or is it
Mm-hmm.
to find a job I really love? Like what would that look like? Sure. And I've
Mm-hmm.
had this experience of having these general questions and not even realize I was thinking about them all the time,
Mm-hmm.
about things I may have wanted. Case in point would be, this is a really super simple uh, example, but,
Mm-hmm.
and this is my generator response too, is baked into this because as we talk about this process, you've got to also filter in your type and see how you're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with the field. But I didn't even realize it was a question I had, but I had been questioning. This was years and years ago when I was making jewelry. And it was
Mm-hmm.
simply just making like beaded jewelry, like real simple
Mm-hmm.
stuff
Right.
and nothing technical. And there was a part of me that wanted to be able to, if someone had, well, I wanted to work with chain, or someone had a chain, or if there was something I wanted to fix, I thought about having more technical skill,
Mm-hmm.
but very simple, like soldering something.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently I had thought about it enough, not all the time, but I had thought, oh, I would like to know how to do that, but how would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. And then one day it showed up in my field of meeting a woman in a yoga class whose husband was a retired jeweler.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I can't remember how the conversation started, but I mean, I had talked to her more than once. We were sort of
Mm-hmm.
friends.
But like
And I
how it
just,
came up.
yeah. And something she said that caused me to ask if he would maybe show me how to solder something. And then that
Mm-hmm.
led to basically a 2-year apprenticeship of
Mm-hmm.
being in his home studio every week, learning whatever I wanted. And so the question was there and it was asked. And then it says in the, again, if you're listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, it says, ask it is given. This is kind of the step one moment. You just ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's intentional or not. And these questions, not answers, questions are what then seed the quantum field when we were talking about the possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
That makes
mean,
sense.
yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Have you ever had an experience that you can recall or you're not paying attention?
Uh, I don't know. I I feel like I got a lot going on in my head
Mm-hmm.
always.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
So like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought about that the other morning when I was stretching in my room because, like I was saying earlier, I like it quiet in the house
Mm-hmm.
and get distracted because I think people do affect me. But I thought, oh, yeah, I can definitely just empty out my mind. I mean, it's always wanting to do something, but I can quiet it. I know I think it's easier for people with undefined heads or heads androgynous to
Mm-hmm.
quiet the mind. We just have to get away from people. just have to get away from you. Anyways.
I mean, I don't even realize that I just always have like thoughts going on in my head. And then when I am like, especially like when we're recording, like I have to make sure that I don't just let my mind wander. I have to like make sure I keep myself focused. So I'm not
That's
like
true.
come back in halfway through a sentence and I'm like,
yeah,
what did she say?
Because you don't just have a defined head. You have sun energy is the gate 63 defined head. Gate 63 is your sun, I should say, and 64 is your earth conscious. So yeah, there's like this definite need, always need, not really a need,
Force?
yeah, in a way that this energy is very active in you, obviously. So, but that also makes you such a source of inspiration to other people around you, because these are these seeds that are planted by these questions, and imagination is very important too. Of just, you said, I got to pay attention so that my mind doesn't wander. And but that's an important part of your energy too, is what could happen, what's possible, what is happening, why did it happen, how is it going to happen, like all of the things. And
All of the things.
but imagination is that energy too, that's important, because that's what I think helps more questions come, is through imagination of what is possible. So these thoughts and questions are influenced by really your experience, your memories, right? Your own past memories, your ancestral memories, or what we talked about, epigenetics. And also, really, because of those two things collectively, the stories you tell yourself about yourself, or the
Your
narrative,
situation.
or the stories about what happened, what is happening, and who you are, and everything else, right? So that's the filter. So there's these thoughts, but then there's this filter, which is your own consciousness, which is your own experience. And that is an important piece between that whole thought going down to the emotional solar plexus thing, is it's got to go through the filter of your own experience and your own understanding.
Right.
Luckily, that's something that can be worked with. So you, in order to change the quality of the emotions you're going to experience, which are then going to calibrate your heart, you have to manage the quality of your thoughts, your imaginings, by possibly needing to change your narrative, rewrite the story.
I mean, in a house, you got to change your filter every once in a while. So you got to change
Your
your
air
air
filter.
filter. Yeah. So you got to change your mind filter.
That's true. And that's the whole, like, change your mind or change your thoughts, change your life. That's, I mean, that definitely holds true, because narrative and the stories you tell yourself is just such a huge impact into how you feel and what you bring. So that's like I said. So you've got the thoughts, and then you've got the emotions, which are affected not only by that filter that it's going through, but also the environment you're in, especially if you have a open G or open solar plexus. You're going to be very affected by your environment, and the people you are around is going to determine that, or not determine it, influence it. And so what's important is, we're human, we're emotional beings, whether we're defined or undefined. We have emotional energy, and it's going to fluctuate.
We're not robots.
I don't think we are. We could all be by now and not know it.
We're all living in a simulation.
I know. Somebody posed the question. I was listening the other day on a podcast. They're like, how do we not know that AI hasn't already taken over? And it wouldn't tell us.
No.
For its own survival. That's a whole nother question. That's a whole nother story. Okay. So what's important is, we're going to have these fluctuations in energy, and we've talked about this before. And so you've got the ups and downs of a wave, energetic wave, high frequency energy. When people have a high vibe, that energy wave is going to have lots of spikes, right? It's higher energy, higher frequency, I should say. It's a shorter wave, right? That's the way to describe it. It's closer together.
Yes, because it's moving quicker.
Moving quicker. There you go. I can see the picture in my head. I can't get the words to come out.
It's very zigzaggy or
Mm-hmm.
wavy.
Up and down, up and down. Yeah, like
Yeah.
on the EKG, you see that goes
Yeah.
fast.
Hmm.
And then the lower frequency wave is a slower wave, so it's
Hmm.
very long in between highs and lows.
Hmm.
And that's the emotional energy. And so if you're undefined in the solar plexus, as you are,
Hmm.
you become wise about energy based on who you come in contact with, right? You get to experience all of it. But it also means in your creative process, you get to choose the emotional energy you want to
Hmm.
work with, what you want to tap into. You don't have to wait through your own wave like emotional beings do, like we do.
Hmm.
It's so I think the undefined people are here to learn from the defined people about how energy waves work,
Hmm.
and then make that choice to basically you get to choose the emotions and choose how you want to feel because your experience, right? You
Hmm.
now that you're more aware of it, can you look back at your life and see where that emotional open undefined solar plexus was in play, how you felt in different environments?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, let's see. You
Prompt
could,
me.
talk to you.
Prompt me.
Well, what I'm saying is hindsight's, they say 2020, right? And I've seen that the more aware I become of these energy markers and things like that and patterns and everything, that I
Hmm.
can look back and be like, oh, maybe that's what was at play. So I mean, like, you tended to say in high school or even in college or whatever,
Hmm.
were there environments that felt better than others? Were there friend groups that felt better than others? Were there situations
Oh yeah. I
that
mean, so like in high school,
Mhm,
my best friend in high school, she was 2 years older than me. So my
mhm,
first 2 years of high school, because she was still in the same high school.
mhm,
Looking back on it now, I think I can tell that I was in the friendship, but it was like, I don't know, it never maybe felt all the way good, you know? Then
mhm,
like looking at my friend group that I had after she had graduated, it seemed a lot more fun. Like that's when I met my actual best friend.
mhm, mhm,
And it
yeah,
just like it's almost like in that second friend group, I could be more of me
mhm,
than my first best friend in high school.
yeah, yeah. And that's the influence of the emotional solar plexus being undefined, but also your G center being undefined as well.
Hmm.
That it felt more aligned with you because environment and people you're with are incredibly important to
Hmm.
you and how you're feeling. And as you felt better, and that's interesting because I've got the outside perspective of your experience there, and I know who you're talking about, that your world did kind of start to open up more.
I had more friends once she was out of my life.
Hmm. Yeah. It's so interesting. See, it's those little things. I'm like, hmm. And now, if you were to come in contact with someone who felt that way again, do you
I think
feel
I would
you'd,
I could recognize it and be like, I don't want this.
yeah, because it would bring up those memories or those feelings of how you felt before. And this is what I mean. You get to choose how you want to feel. We all get to choose how we want to feel,
Hmm.
but people with undefined solar plexus are more keen to these differences in feeling because they're not generating their own emotional wave. You're sampling other people's emotional waves. Make sense?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think we're really getting deep on this. Sorry. I'm always
That's how
trying to
we
make
do.
sure let's make examples here. I'm always like, my intention is always to like, let's keep it to a simple episode and then
No, no. No, like for me, examples, I like give me all the examples.
yeah, yeah. And so with the defined emotional waves such as myself, what I've learned is that taking time and observing the highs and the lows of a wave or fluctuations and knowing when to what feels good, what doesn't feel good, knowing that it's going to change over time and getting used to understanding that this is just what emotional energy is. There's highs, there's lows, not feeling pressured or rushed to do
Mhm.
things or to make decisions, but to honor this emotional awareness, because I know over time that they say that if you're in the low of your wave, it's never a good
Mhm.
time to be making all these decisions. It's a very like inward looking time. It's a introspective, writing about things, journaling, creating, doing these things that is really keeping yourself from slowing that wave down by digging into the emotion too much and finding reasons for the emotion and piling on of the emotion
Mm.
and like I feel really bad, oh my god, it's because I'm such a loser narrative
Yeah.
coming in, all the reasons why, oh well, and then when something bad
Well,
happens and
nothing ever
oh there's
works out.
something else, because what's what we're talking about here, it can
Mhm.
feel worse. And they say if you can always understand, if you are emotionally defined, that it's just a wave and it's going to go back
Mhm.
up, right? You're
You just
down
gotta
here
write it
now,
out.
it's going to go back up. And so as soon as you even start having that thought of awareness, excuse me, that awareness of, oh, I'm feeling low, I can write it out to when it comes better. This is a time
Mhm.
to take care of myself. That is what starts shortening that wave. And that is what starts raising your baseline, is because you are understanding your emotional energy and knowing that this is what's going to influence more of what you're bringing to you. You start to be like, okay, that's how I'm feeling. That's okay. And that's where some other things I work with, like tapping and stuff, which I really got to do an episode on that,
Mhm.
um, come into play, because you're working, like I said, this isn't a linear process. You're kind of doing it all at the same time of, okay, what is the story I'm telling about this emotion? What do I want to be different? Or just let's just let it be and focus on
Mhm.
something else. That
Mhm.
raises that baseline a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's an important part in the process, is if it's all about how you feel, then it doesn't matter what you're thinking about. It matters what you're feeling, right? So
Mhm.
this is a big thing in the Abraham Hicks teachings, is that if it's hard for you to feel good about quote unquote manifesting the thing you want, say more money or a better relationship, a new job or whatever,
Maybe it's not quite right.
well, it's not so much that, it brings too much emotional energy to it to you, right? It's like steering a ship, right? You can't like just stop on a dime and go the other direction.
No.
Even a little boat.
Yeah. They don't work.
No, it doesn't work. You have to make these slow changes, right? And so if you've got a lot of emotional energy around something that you want and it isn't happening, and you think about, oh gosh, we're human. It can't help but just start to feel like more stress, or why isn't it happening, or this or that. What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? I must be blocking myself. Oh, this is because
Mhm.
of this, blah, 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 blah. Just stop thinking about it. This has become my new practice, is choose how you want to feel. And I've been saying lately that I'm choosing
Mhm.
to be slightly delusional about things, because it's like, well, it's not here yet. It's not what I've seen yet. This isn't my reality yet. But I know within myself that I am changing, and I have changed, because I can feel my emotional baseline has raised over even
Hmm.
the last 2 years. And it is changing what's happening in my life, but also how I feel about it. But I also know that I still spend a lot of time in my head, and we have stories. So I just try to do other things sometimes, and just going outside sometimes, looking at clouds, enjoying the world around you.
Mhm.
So I think I got off on a tangent there. I know I did. Oh well. So if we're thinking about this pathway from the mind, the head center, to the emotional solar plexus, to the heart, right?
Mhm.
Calibrating the heart, focusing on what feels good, cultivating more joy. And I know that we talked about the heart center, excuse me, the G center, in the series we did with G center, where we went through all the gates, and it told us
Right.
like all those gates have the themes that show us what helps calibrate even further this monopole to be attracting to us what feels good and what is
Mm-hmm.
appropriate for us based on those themes and how to work with that. And if you want more detail about that, you can go back and listen to that episode about the G Center. But just to recap that, the
Thank you.
G Center, what?
I said thank you.
The G Center shows us what it is the experience we're meant to have in this lifetime. So this is
Okay.
what the monopole wants to attract to us is the things that these themes here. This is what we are meant to experience, designed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to set this up the right way because just loosely going through each gate, it shows us that we're designed to love ourselves, gate
Mm-hmm.
10. It shows us that we are designed to be powerful in our selves. We have our own self governance and our own power. That's gate 7. We're designed to be authentically ourselves. Gate 1, that is the creative
Ah,
individual. We are designed, this is very important, to
okay.
tell our own story about our experience through gate 13. It
Mm.
is the gate of the narrative. It is, okay, this was the experience because it does come through that circuitry. Do I want this to be my experience? And this is where forgiveness lives. We're designed to forgive ourselves,
Mm.
forgive whatever it is that is standing in our way of what we want our experience to be. We're designed, that's so I said that's gate 13. We're designed to have a deep connection to source, something that is bigger than ourselves, spirit, part of the whole. That'd be gate 25. And
I think I have that one.
you do. We are designed to be vital and healthy and vibrant in the body. So that means that in order to have your monopole calibrating the right things to you, you got to take care of yourself. And if you are burnt out or if you're in ill health, you've really got to take the time to nurture yourself. It's important because, hello, we're in bodies.
Gotta keep those good.
Consciousness can't stay here experiencing stuff if the body breaks down because
Mm.
once the body dies, consciousness leaves. Um,
Have you side note on that kind of
mhm.
have you ever watched it's a Disney movie Soul?
Oh, yes. Yes,
It's a good one.
it is. It's a
It's a
good,
good
good
one.
one. Yeah. Oh, Disney tapped into source there.
Hey, they know how to hit they know how to get the kids and the adults.
Actually, that is a soundtrack that I also have on my Spotify, was the
Oh, I've
music
never
from
thought
that.
of I haven't listened to that one.
They're very short, but
I
it'll
bet it's good.
definitely it is good. Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. So that's gate 46. We're also designed to be supported. Gate 2 is about receiving and allowing how much we're allowed to receive because remember, monopole is bringing to us what we are calibrated to.
Mhm.
If we are not allowing ourselves to be supported, not asking for help when we need it, if we're, telling stories about ourselves that don't support us deserving what we want to come to us, gets in the way.
Mhm.
And then lastly, we're designed to share. We're designed to share who we are, what we have to give through compassionate giving. We're connected to each other, and we recognize through gate 15 that this is what we're here to do, is to take all of us and share it, right? Because we
Mhm.
understand that we are all here connected, sharing the same experience in different ways. So you can see, it's like I said, you can see the whole, like, you want to look at it in a linear way, but they're all connected to each other. How your emotions are calibrated, how your G center is calibrated really depends on the stories you tell yourself, the filter through which your thoughts come through,
Mhm.
and then how much you are connected to your own authentic self and the bigger capital L love of, source, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Um, so the more you are connected to those things, the more positive influence you're going to have in creating what you want. Because here's the fun thing, law of attraction and creativity and all that stuff. You're
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
always you're always creating,
Yeah.
just like gravity. It's always working.
Always there.
So if you want to know if the law of attraction or your monopole is working, just look at your life.
See if your monople's working.
How it is working. But what's the quality of your
Mm-hmm.
emotional frequency and the thoughts that are calibrating that? What's the quality there? Look around. Now,
Yes.
if it's not where you want it to be, there's things you want to change.
Mm-hmm.
Don't beat yourself up for it.
Oh my
Like, so often we look around and we're like, oh, my life sucks. This is not what I want. What am I doing
God.
wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with me? Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, there's nothing wrong. This is all a learning experience. And you can't, the best thing you can learn is, don't know what you want until
Mm-hmm.
you know what you don't want. You got to have
Yep.
that contrast in life to understand. So even when you're experiencing things you don't want, you can change the narrative around that and not make it a bad thing. Be like, oh, okay, I'm learning in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I want to choose differently next time. I want
Yeah.
to change this experience.
They say, what do they say? There are no mistakes. There's just learning experiences or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, especially if you're a line 3, line 6, manifesting generator. All of us, but it's true. But that's what those types, those profiles are here to show all of us, is that because I have very little of this wanting to try things like trial and error. Like, I'm a line
Mm-hmm.
1. I just want to gather all the information and get it right the first time, especially with that hanging gate 18.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I have, a 6 energy. So in my stage of life, it's more of a 3 energy, which is the
Hmm.
trial and error. But
Hmm.
I don't like making mistakes. I
Well,
hate making mistakes.
yeah. Well, you have that whole 1858 too.
Is that the,
That's the
what is that one?
channel of judgment, but that's
Oh,
the
yes.
creative energy. That's the refining process of wanting. That's where perfectionism lives,
Mm, that's
right?
that's what it is.
Yeah. So being in your head, letting that energy be directed towards yourself in a
Mhm.
negative way,
But okay,
can
so
definitely.
thinking about it a little bit more, the not wanting to make mistakes, it's primarily like if I was in a school setting or if I'm in a work setting,
Hmm.
I don't want to make mistakes. But then like trying to figure out something outside of those, I'd be
Hmm.
like, well, I'll just try this and see what happens. So it's a lot of that external pressure is when I don't want to be making those mistakes.
Yeah.
Now that I think
Well,
about it.
I think that would be partially when we'll talk about another episode I want to do, which is about definition, is that
Mm-hmm.
you have a very large split in your body graph. You have
Mm-hmm.
defined head and ajna, and then you have defined spleen and root. You're definitely identifying more with the mind. That's who
Mm-hmm.
you think you are a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what happens. You have a lot of mental energy. And so, of course, your identity, the ego, whatever you want to call it, is going to feel threatened if it doesn't feel like it knows,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you feel threatened, or you feel like I have to have the answers. I have to know everything. And if I don't, this is like death to me.
Oh yeah, I 100% because there was one calculus class that I was in, one class period specifically, where I
Hmm.
almost started crying because I didn't understand what he was teaching.
Hmm. Yeah. I get that. I think a lot of people do. And especially, there's way more that goes into that, but we'll talk about that more on the episode about definition. That would be a good place to
Okay.
dig
Yeah, yeah.
into. So, okay. So we have kind of explained, I hope,
I think so.
of this process. So as a practice, now let's really, I've laid it out there. It's like, okay, great.
Hmm.
So now what do I do? Especially if you're new to this whole thing, like, oh, well, I just like changed everything about how I think and that's going to work. Well, that's impossible. You can't just all of a sudden change everything, right? It's a
Hmm.
little bit. Um, all the things that have transformed my life have been a quote unquote practice. It's something that you just decide day to day that you're
Hmm.
going to practice, yoga practice, mindfulness practice, all those things. They like, it's a practice, meaning you have to do
Hmm.
it. over and over. So, first thing, knowing your human design type, just type is the most important to know what your strategy and authority is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This, as if you can start tapping into that as level one, knowing whether or not you're, with your authority, especially if you're emotional authority, not emotional authority, splenic authority, knowing how it is you're supposed to interact with the field. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you can align with your design, that goes back to that self love, with that acceptance, with understanding yourself, is going to help this process move a lot faster. And I can
Mm-hmm.
totally attest to this, that it lessens a lot of resistance to this process if you can see yourself through the lens of human design, of how you were designed, and understand all these places in yourself that you thought were a problem are
Mm-hmm.
usually your gifts.
Yeah.
Okay, so aligning with your unique design, your strategy, your authority. Okay, and start living as yourself. And then learning to manage your thoughts and emotions, which means just paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
not letting them just run all over you all the time. Because I know I've said this to you before, you're not always responsible for the first thought, but the second one and everyone after that, you are responsible for. So when something pops into your head, and this is that emotional calibration piece, is like
Mm-hmm.
thoughts are going to just come in sometimes. That filter you put it through, the meaning you give to it, you're responsible for that. And that's going to calibrate your emotions and calibrate your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So pay attention, spend time, you know, meditation, or just 5 minutes a day of just trying to clear your thoughts. If you have to do a guided meditation, that's fine. If you have to go outside and walk without your earbuds in your ears, listening to other things, just paying attention, that will help. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The environment that you're in, again, are you around people that feel good? Are you around people that are always complaining? Does that affect how you are feeling? Does it affect the stories you start telling? Again, this is my daily practice at work.
Mm-hmm.
Is, and I've always had this, I've always, when I look back, I'm like, this has been part of my function, is going into environments and being like, okay, this is crazy. I don't want to think this way. How often do you just fall into the habit in certain groups of bitching and complaining or gossiping, or, you know, always looking at the negative side of everything? Every time somebody
Mm-hmm.
says to me, oh, the world's going crazy, the voice in my head says, no, it's not. Everything's fine. I'm not buying into it.
Maybe it's bumpy, but it's not wrong.
Yeah. And I totally understand that there's going to be some environments that people may be in currently that is very hard to just decide they're not a part of anymore. But are you going to engage in it? Can you take breaks from it? Can you remember baseline raising over time?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's important, is making these small decisions for yourself daily that are going to raise that baseline. So the less
Mm-hmm.
time you can either spend in that environment, or how you feel in that environment, as far as, are you engaging, and start making changes. Contemplating those gates in the G center, opening your heart. Go back, listen to that episode, maybe write it out of how you're supposed to really be focusing on your own love, your power, your forgiveness, your, I am vital, I am myself, I am joy, I am love, all these things that you can
Mm-hmm.
tell yourself. The more you can do that. Um, like I said, take it easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Always give yourself permission to begin again, because, again, baseline.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have highs, we're going to have lows, we're going to fuck up, we're going to like have good days, bad days.
I mean, our whole world is just cycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Nature.
cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spiral of evolution. It's a spiral. It's not a, again, it's not a straight line. It's a, going to keep coming back and learning these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a really big one that we often overlook, or it trips us up, is the whole beating yourself up, because that doesn't make yourself feel good, you know?
Mm-mm.
And it's all about making yourself feel better. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I always say, when I hear someone talking about themselves negatively, I would say, don't, quit talking about my friend like that.
No.
I try to remind myself that. Would the things I'm saying to myself, would I say it to someone else? That'd be
Hmm.
horrible. That's not encouraging. So why would you say them to
Yeah.
yourself, right? Okay. Again, just paying attention to how you feel, choosing what feels good. If you're hung up on a certain subject, or if it causes you pain or it brings up painful memories, literally either focus on something else, or if you want to help change the narrative, you can literally like write a story, you know, get pen to paper. What is the story you're telling yourself? What do you want the story to be? How does it make you feel? I mean, you can even write it as fiction, like write a
Hmm.
story of yourself of who you want to be, right? It's just, there's lots of
Yeah.
little things you can do, and then just observe what is coming into your reality. If it's things you like, if you like what's coming in, do it again. Keep the process. If it's things you
Hmm.
don't like, what can you shift? What can you change?
Right.
And I know this wasn't like, here's 5 steps to guaranteed you're going to have $1 million in your bank next week, because I haven't figured that one out yet either.
But personally, I hate those ones
Right.
because they're always like the most, they feel like the most ridiculous steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't like those,
Yeah.
but I don't, maybe I'm weird.
And maybe, well, I mean, maybe people need very specific concrete things, like the vision boarding, all that stuff, it's important, but the basis of the
Hmm.
framework is you've got to observe the thoughts, you've got to make sure you're telling the right stories to yourself, it's going through the correct filter.
Change your filter.
Yep. It is determining the emotional frequency, the vibration of energy that you are then calibrating your heart with. I mean, it's just that
Hmm.
simple. I made it an hour long to make it more complicated.
No, more detailed, not complicated, detailed.
Okay. Oh, see, there I am beating myself up. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
see how it happens? It's so insidious. The default is so, But again, if we think about the whole human experience here with consciousness, it is a learning experience. It is
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what doesn't work so you know what works. In order to know you're experiencing joy, you had to experience sadness. In order to
Oh yeah, I remember talking about
experience
that.
sadness, you've had to have experienced joy. It's like the opposite, the polarity of everything. That is how
Two
this
side.
whole
There's two
universe,
sides to every coin.
yeah, that there's this pull, there's poles, polarity of every situation. In Abraham Hicks would say, there's two ends of the stick. Which end of the stick are you focusing on? It's the same stick.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta like pick where it's gonna be. But that's how the whole experience, I think, works for us, and how it's designed to work is understanding there is choice, that's free will, and understanding that in every moment there is a choice how you want to feel. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to know what you've been choosing, look at your life.
Mm-hmm.
That may be great, and I hope it is. I always know that there's always room for improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and more and more and more and more and more and
Mm-hmm.
more.
I hate the whole new year, new me phrase, so I'm
Hmm.
gonna go with new year, better me.
Yeah, expanded me. Yeah, better feeling me. I
Mhm.
want to
Good
feel
vibes.
better. Good vibes, man. Um,
Your vibe is off.
yeah. Well, that's what I was saying in the last episode, was like everybody just wants to like throw away the previous year, but the previous year was important too. The previous year is what brought you here. Everything that
You
you've
learn
been
things
through.
from it.
Yeah. You are who you are today based on who you were yesterday and the day before that and everything else. So it's like there's value in that. The question
And
is, moving forward, what what do you want to take with you?
we have had quite a few learning years
Yeah.
recently.
There's more to come.
I
But
can't believe it's 2023 now.
I know. But like you said, those years, that is exactly this whole process. The world was moving at such a frenetic pace that nobody had the chance to, people have been in survival mode for so long, to think about it or have the space to feel into it. And that whole shutdown really changed things. And I think we're seeing the effect of that now, which I know we've talked about, of how people want to feel in their lives and what is really important. They're changing their stories. They're changing what they want.
They're changing their environments.
It's happening. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess that's where we'll leave it today. Do you have any further thoughts on this, Haley? I always put you on the spot at the last minute.
I know you always do. I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, it's good talking to you again and seeing you in your new environment. Your environment for now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and the beginning of your new calendar year. And until next time, take care of yourself. And bye, Haley.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.